Hey, I'm Rachel Kugel, and this is Rachel Defends You. And today I have an incredible get that I'm so excited to have because in the legal community, in the DWI world, in New Jersey, she's a rock star. And that is LeeAnn Longo. She is the Director of Operations for Client Services with Interlock Device of New Jersey. And this is an incredible company. I know she's going to talk more about it, but it's really the main one at this point that I'm sending clients to for a whole variety of reasons that we'll talk about. But my favorite is that it's small. It's not this huge, conglomerate company. It's a small company made up of real people who actually care, who actually will work with you and your clients to get them through. What I always say is to make it like a bump in the road rather than a life-changing event. She's been with the company for over 14 years. In her current position for 8 years. The staff is 7, but I'm telling you, it feels like A, like LeeAnn runs everything, and B, at a staff of 7, that's a really small and intimate community that can really help you and your clients. She's a mother of 3, and I can't believe this because she looks super young. I actually think you're like younger than me, and she's a grandmother of a new grandbaby. Yeah, I'm all about it. Same. Of a new grandbaby, as well as a Great Dane and a Mastiff, which I can't even imagine. You'll have to show me a picture of that after, or if you have one. I was going to say one funny thing I was going to say is I think we'll win the award for most stuff behind us.
Yeah, yes, yes.
We clearly have a similar style aesthetic. But anyway, I'm so excited to have her here to talk to us about interlock devices in general, how they work, how to use them, and basically just everything you need to know about them, how to get through it if you or someone you love needs one. And I'm super excited. So thank you, LeeAnn, so much for
Yeah, thanks
giving
for
us
having me.
these few moments of your time today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share about it.
How did you end up like working over there at IDNJ? Like, how did you find yourself there?
So
If you
originally,
remember.
the owner of the company's name is Jason
Who's
Guberman,
also
and
incredible, by the
yeah,
way.
so I knew him, um, from I don't know if it was high school or after high school, and he started the company. It was really, really small. They were doing maybe like 2 installs a week. It was before the first interlock law
Mhm.
passed. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to come work for me? I need somebody in the office." And we started super small and we just figured it out along the way. And then when the Ricky's law passed,
Mhm.
I think it was 20, I don't know, 25th. No,
Mhm.
probably, I don't remember, but
When they first
2011
started mandating
law
in,
passed.
right.
And then we started getting busier and busier. And then it's just grown. So we started small. It was kind of just me and him and a technician. And then it
Yeah.
grew, as the laws changed.
It still feels small though, and that's like one of the things I love about it, in terms of all the options out there for people, to use. And I think that's a good point too, just in terms of growth, because it also reflects the changes in the law over time. And really,
Yeah.
I think where it's even heading in the future, it's like more and more sentences, more and more people are being mandated to the use of interlocks, certainly in criminal cases, in municipal traffic DUI cases, even I'm seeing on matrimonial and child custody
Yeah.
cases. It's really, there's definitely a move away from more punitive stuff like suspensions and harsher penalties, and a move toward this idea of protecting the public through interlocks, but also allowing defendants to drive and function and not lose their livelihoods.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense then, and I'm glad that everybody's kind of hopped on board because, you don't have to lose your job. This is even as small as a 6-month suspension can throw a complete wrench in your whole life.
Yeah, especially in a place like New Jersey. I practice in New York and New Jersey. And, in New Jersey in particular, like the public transportation is not easy. People can
Yes.
live in one county and work all the way, downstate in another county. So it definitely is going a long way toward helping people. And it's really only getting more and more because, as you pointed out, we had Ricky's Law, then changes in the law that were basically making almost all first offenses basically were at the point of having an interlock. And now we've really entered a phase where even second and third offense people can potentially drive with interlocks, although for a long period of time, but with
Yeah.
interlocks. So I think business is only going to boom further for you. And hopefully we can give people information today to know what it is and also to know how to get through it with minimal impact, because people have trouble with interlocks sometimes too.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, what those things are and how to avoid them. So I wonder if you could tell us just in general, if you know kind of what an interlock device is and how does it work?
Sure. So an interlock device is a machine that, if we get down to basics, it's got three parts. There's a control box, there's a handset, and there's a cord connecting the two. And the control box is what gathers the data, and the handset is what you blow into to start the test. So basically, it acts like a relay. You blow in, the car will not start unless you pass the test below an O5. If you pass the test, the relay closes, the car's allowed to start. So it's a simple installation. Um, and it just allows, you to start the car if you haven't been drinking. If you have been drinking, then it won't. And it'll lock you out for different amounts of time, depending on how high the BAC is. And of course, all of that is being recorded on that control box that's under the dash. And
It's
then,
almost like a black box kind of thing that
yeah,
records.
kind of like a black box. It's small. And then each month or by month, when you come in, that information is downloaded off the unit into a computer system that we have access to, so that we can, send the log files to the court or to the DMV, whoever requests them. And of course, then certify at the end that you're good to go. And then you're done.
Is the does a person just blow into it? And I mean, I know some of these answers, but just in the does a person just blow into it to start it, or do they, I mean, they have to keep blowing into it, right? I mean, it's not just starting it and that's it.
Right. So when interlocks first came out, I think that you just had to blow into it to start it. But then as people were manipulating the system as time went on, they realized some other things needed to be implemented. So the rolling retests happened randomly during a drive, because somebody could say, hey, dude, come blow into this thing for me while they're drunk, and then drive off. And now they're technically driving drunk, even though somebody passed the test to start the car. So in order to keep everybody on the road safe and honest, it'll ask 5 to 15 minutes after you start the car for the person who's driving to take a rolling retest, which then proves they're still sober and the same person, and continue. And it's about twice an hour in a straight hour drive, but completely random.
That's good information. And because I always get this from people and I don't always know the exact right answer or the right reason why it happens this way. But let's say someone doesn't, fails the rolling retest or like doesn't do it in the right time. Their car doesn't just shut down in the middle of the street and cause like a massive accident, right? Like what happens while you're driving because people get afraid of that. I hear that a lot.
So it cannot shut your car off while it's driving. That would be dangerous. There's no ability for that machine to shut the car off while the car is driving. What I have seen, though, and we will do if we see somebody who we think is manipulating the system in this way, or maybe skipping the retests, whatever, we can hook the horn and the lights up to the unit. And so then it will alert people around them that there's some kind of problem. So that'll stop a drunk driver from continuing to blow into it and failing, or not taking the retest at all because they're intoxicated. So there's the ability for us to hook up the horn and the lights, which will flash and let everybody know.
And the ones in Jersey don't have cameras.
They
right?
do not have
Because
cameras.
in New York, we have cameras. So if someone has someone else blow into it, we get a picture basically of someone. And I've seen some crazy stuff. People lean over and have their wife do it. I've seen people try to have their kid do it. I mean, it's nuts what goes on. Yeah, that's great.
Jersey hasn't required the cameras, and I don't think that they will, because it's still, in New York, a DUI is a crime, where in New Jersey, it's just a ticket or a moving violation. So that's the difference. In New York, you need the camera almost to protect yourself, because if it wasn't you blowing into it, you could be convicted of blowing into it and failing, and it wasn't you.
Yeah, people end up with violations of probation or violations of conditional discharge and end up facing, a year in jail potentially or more if it's a felony. And so, yeah, you're right that it does actually protect them to some extent too. Are there any cars, because I hear this from clients a lot too, my car is too nice, too fancy, too fabulous, too electric, too you have to be too careful with it, it's too delicate, all these reasons why an interlock either can't be installed in their car or will screw up their car. Are there cars that it will mess up or that it can't go into?
So if you asked me that question a year ago, I would have told you no, we could do every car and it won't screw up any car. What we found with these new hybrid motored cars, which are like the BMW, couple of the BMWs, a couple of the Mercedes, is it's not a fully electric car. We can do those, or a fully gas car. It's this hybrid component to the motor that doesn't allow us to trick it from knowing it's not on yet. So we will eventually have the ability, but we're not the company that's going to hack into your car to figure it out, hack into your brand new car. We think that other companies may be installing them, but it's not really stopping them from starting the car if they've been drinking.
It's not
So
working right.
we're more, we want to do things by the book, and we want to make sure that we're keeping the client and the people around them safe. So we won't do it or even try to do it if we don't think that we can be successful. But there's probably only been in the last year 2 cars that we were like, nope, we can't do it.
And it doesn't, like, if someone, because a thing I hear a lot too is like people love their car or it's expensive and they think that the install is going to mess up their car.
Never. It'll never, you won't even know that it was there when it's out. The control box installation happens underneath the dash. So they're taking a piece off, they're putting it in, they're putting everything back. The machine itself comes on a long cord, so it's not mounted anywhere. We don't make them mount them. So it's kind of just hanging. You keep it in your lap while you're driving. So then once it's out of there, you never know it was there. We do leased vehicles, owned vehicles, old vehicles, all kinds of vehicles, and they'll never know it was there when it's gone.
There's no way to put in a motorcycle, right?
So the problem with the motorcycles, and I know that the DMV is going to be upset with me for saying this out loud publicly, but so yes, it's legal to put them on motorcycles. The problem is that there's not a current parameter that will allow them to not take the rolling retest. It's not safe to take a rolling retest while you're driving a motorcycle.
Good point.
So we have requested the DMV give us some sort of parameters so that we can present that to Road Guard, the manufacturer of Draeger, the manufacturer of the unit that we use. And we have been unsuccessful in that, because we have some clients in Connecticut, and Connecticut has a parameter for a motorcycle. So it's doable and we know how to do it, but we can't because there's no parameter in New Jersey to allow to bypass that rolling retest. That would be unsafe.
So it's really not, I always thought it was about the physical installation, but it's really about the rolling retest and the safety of that, and really not about the physical installation.
Right.
So that's interesting. I really thought it was a physical problem with it.
No, I mean, it's a pain in the rear end to install them on motorcycles because in New Jersey, it rains a lot here. Like we're going to lose units over and over again. And this is me just being completely transparent. But what we do is we have them get this like saddlebag on the thing that has to be kept in. So there's like ways, and we've looked into all of it, and we're more than willing. There's just no, there's no parameter to allow for it.
I wonder, just that reminds me, the saddlebag concept reminds me, I had looked into years ago, because another complaint I get from people is that it's like embarrassing. And I had looked into it years ago that there were some things they were talking, some companies were playing around with where it was like, almost looks like a cup, looks like a big gold cup, kind of put it in. And so then it looks like if you put it up to your lips, like you're drinking from a cup. Have you seen anything? I haven't seen it in New Jersey.
We had them. We made them. We made them. Here in our office was like, this is a brilliant idea. So he made these Starbucks plastic cups, and we would sell them. Then what we found was that the condensation that built up inside that cup because of the logistics caused failed tests.
Wow.
And listen, I wouldn't have believed it unless it was a 9-month pregnant girl. And she was like taking the test and it was failing her. So what we realized was that whatever was happening in the chemical with the condensation inside the cup, it was giving them failed tests. So you can still buy them. They're out there, but we won't sell them because we know what it's going to cause. It's going to cause some fake chemical reaction to the machine, and it was causing failed tests that weren't actually failed.
I had looked into it even as a sort of, for a client that had to get it, as like a gift almost, to say like, as a way to help them, a way to help them through it. I had looked into those as well, because a lot of people do say to me that it's embarrassing. People who drive their kids for carpool, or, real estate agent who gets people in the car to go show them, houses or whatever, have expressed to me the embarrassment issue. And that's so I guess I won't give it to anybody. I don't want to cause anybody's false positive. That's really interesting.
Especially now that it's actually being monitored, because
Right,
up
right.
until the new law, nobody really even paid attention to
Which was
it.
the best, that was the best part to explain to people. Like, because again, in New York, we have a monitor. We have a
Oh yeah,
person whose
the road
job
rush.
is to monitor. I mean, it's amazing. Like it's one
Yeah.
person for the entire, all 5 boroughs, and she
Yeah.
monitors it. And if there's a violation, she, gets it in touch with the court and the prosecutors and whatever. And in New Jersey, there was really nobody looking at it. All
Nope.
this time, it was just like, yeah, don't get in trouble, don't get caught driving without it. I don't know. It's sort of like, you know.
Super frustrating. It was so upsetting because you see that there's this major problem, but there's nothing you can, nothing you can do about it. So
Yeah, that's wild. So in terms of cost, because that's another thing people
yeah,
talk about, is it always the same? Like what kind of things affect cost? I know you don't have to say like an exact number because I'm sure it does vary, or it might even vary a year from now, and you don't want to necessarily be on the hook with a specific number, but like a ballpark of what it's. I usually tell people a few $100s to install and about $100 a month is how I tell people like the general terms about it. Do you think that's like good advice, bad advice, anything they can do to save money on it?
so of course all the companies are going to be different. And of course I'm going to tell you that our company is the best, but I'm saying that because I've researched all the other companies and all, so there are two different business models. All the other companies in New Jersey are in Texas or California, and they subcontract the work to small car audio places here. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll tell you over the phone, kind of shadily, we charge you $90 a month, but they're not telling you that the car audio place that you're going to is going to charge you for the installation, the removal, the calibrations. If you miss a test, if you fail a test, they have all these fees because, of course, that small car audio place wants their skin in the game and to make some money. So that's the business model. Our business model is different. We don't charge for the installation, for the removal, for the calibrations, for any of that stuff. We're charging a daily rate, and I'll say it's $425 a day, which equates to about $135 a month. Always
Mm-hmm.
subject to change, side note, but it's been that for a while. So they're talking about $135 a month with this company. And I think probably if you calculated all the fees at the other company, it would be probably close to double once they,
Yeah,
get.
yeah. No, there's definitely a lot. I have noticed a lot of fees with other companies, and I've also noticed a lot of, because they are, some of them are bigger. And and I don't mean bigger in a positive way. I just mean like you're more of a number with them, that
Right.
I've also noticed more problems. And listen, I mean, in this line of work, there's going to be hiccups, especially when things change, right? There's going to be issues with DMV, or MVC as it's called in New Jersey. There's going to
Yeah.
be issues with paperwork. I mean, it's near impossible to have everything flow perfectly all the time. I mean, we're going to see that, and our job is to try to help people through it. But I have noticed if there's a company that's bigger, maybe isn't super focused on Jersey, for example, maybe doesn't always know exactly what Jersey's up to, the right paperwork,
Right.
those things also cost money because you get it
Yes.
in, everything doesn't go perfectly. Now you've had it for 10 more days than you needed it, which costs money. Or, you have to redo. And I've had people, you and I both know, that started out with someone else, and then I switched them to you, and they had to pay for that switch, or you've been kind enough once in a while to help me on that. But the point is that there's all these additional things that also come from going with a company that doesn't get it right the first time, and which isn't to say there's never a hiccup that's not outside of our control, but I know you guys really try to get it right the first time.
Yeah, we care. And that's the thing. When you call our office, you're going to get a person that answers the phone. These other, and we pay extra for the phone system that allows that to happen because everything has gone to this, like, please press one to speak to
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So we paid extra for this phone system that dials directly through so that
Mhm.
somebody's answering the phone. We want them to know we're here for them and we're going to help and we actually care. And, I'll even argue with the people at the DMV or argue with the people at the
Yeah,
court when there's a problem
I know
because
you
I
have.
know
Yeah.
I'm right and they're wrong. And I know a little bit more because I'm touching
Yeah,
all.
well, you do it all day, every day. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So, and I'll try to not argue with the DMV, but be like, hey, are you sure about such and such? Look at this and help me understand type of situation. So
Right.
you're not going to get that with those big companies because they're like next, 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 where we're like, okay, this is our client and we're trying to help them. And
Right, right,
yeah,
trying to get through it. What do you
saving
think
money that
attracts
way for sure.
somebody who's like new to the device? I always try to tell people things to worry about in terms of pitfalls. Like, for example, people don't know initially, like maybe don't use hand sanitizer, don't spray perfume, don't use mouthwash. Like, is there something you give people, or a list, like in terms of concerns
Yeah.
about, when they're first learning how to use it?
So we show them a video at the installation. It's about a 10-minute video that's going to go over all of that. It's going to tell them the things to stay away from. And we have a pamphlet that we give them that also lists the things. But I'm going to be 100% honest with you. And I don't believe in my 14 and a half years of experience that hand sanitizer or mouthwash are nearly as big of a problem as it appears to be, because, and this might be a funny little tidbit, I, for many years, only got mouthwash calls on Saturday mornings, which to me was like, so wait, are they not using mouthwash any other day? Or are they drinking Friday night and they're still above an '05, which isn't really
Right. People
high
don't
on
realize how
Saturday
low
morning?
that is.
So they're like,
Right.
it's got to be the mouthwash. And I'm like, it's probably not. You just have to
Right.
take a look at what you drank last night and then no more mouthwash problems. So I think that the
Mm.
chatter is that all these things are going to set it off. But what it is that they're not realizing that alcohol, depending on your body, and everybody's body is different, metabolizes alcohol differently. So some people could be completely sober in 2 hours, and some people whose liver isn't functioning at tip top shape could take
Right.
8 hours.
Interesting. And then, in terms of that, like, people don't realize too that, and this actually brings me to my next question was going to be, what causes it? Like, what number does it have to be to cause a problem or a lockout? Because I think that's the other thing people don't realize is, for example, in New York, a lot of times post criminal conviction, they're actually set at 0.02.
So these units
Super.
are set at 0.025, but at
Mhm.
0.025, and that happened when the law changed. They
Mhm.
changed that. It used to be higher. It was at an O2 when I first started, and we were like, this is too low. It's causing
Mhm.
failed tests. And back then it would automatically lock you out for an hour at
Uh-huh.
that point. Now at the then we got it moved up to '05, and then once this new law passed that they were actually monitoring and everything, it's back down to a 0.25, but at a 0.25 it's just saying try again in a minute.
Oh, it's
And
not totally locking you out. It's way well,
it's
that's
not
so the other thing I wanted to touch on actually, because this is, and I think you'll agree with me, is a lot of times when you say that retest, so let's say you take a test, you fail, you get that 0.02 or whatever, and then there's a retest. I have a lot of clients that panic and they don't retest. And I always tell people retest, because first of all,
yes,
we already potentially have a violation. So
yes,
that ship has sailed. And the
yes,
retest, I really think people look at this wrong. They panic that it's going to get locked out, or I really feel like, and this is especially true in New York where it's a crime and I might have to be before a judge arguing it, but even in New Jersey, the retest is really to really protects the client, because if it was mouthwash or
yes,
hand sanitizer, it will be obvious. If I blow into it and I blow 0.08 and then half an hour later I blow again and it's an O2. I mean, that's not possible in physical terms. So it would have to be mouth alcohol, because real alcohol doesn't behave that way.
right,
Digested alcohol is not going to behave in that same way. So I always tell people, don't be afraid of that retest. That retest is what's protecting you. When you come in and say it was mouthwash, I have a much easier time arguing that it really was mouthwash if I
yep,
could show it went down, even if it didn't go down to zero. But if it
yep,
went down significantly in 5 minutes,
yep,
metabolized alcohol doesn't behave that way. So I always
exactly.
tell people do it. And I
Yep.
think I'm right on that. That's the
Yeah,
purpose.
you're 100% right on that. And also, people in New Jersey don't know that the only failed tests that matter as far as compliance go are the ones over an '08.
Okay.
And
That's
if you're
important.
failing, and you're allowed one in your final 30 days, but you can't have two. And if you failed five within 1 hour continuing to try, it only
Mhm.
counts as one. It doesn't count
Right. So
as
there's no reason not to do the
reason
retest.
not to take that retest and try again.
And
Correct.
it might help you. The thing that it's wild though, the way New Jersey's thinking about it, because it is so different. Like in New York, if you had 5 positive blows, you'd be looking at jail time.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that, worst case, it's like if 5 is still one, like in New York, it
It's
would be,
different, but what's good about it is, so you figure these people in New Jersey are getting sentenced to have 90 days, 7 months, 9 months, 1 year, 2 years. If by the end of even the 90-day sentences, if you're in your final 30 days and you're still attempting to start the car with alcohol in it, one time, two
Mm.
times, three times, then they need, all they're really doing is extending them another 30, 60, 90
Right.
days. You know, let's try again. Let's get yourself together. And when that client, so every time somebody is in non-compliance with this company, with our company,
Mhm.
I don't just send them a non-compliance. I call them on the phone and I say to them, hey, dude, you failed 8 times
Wow.
in the final 30 days. This is my
Wow.
way. And it's just because it matters to me.
No, that's amazing.
I'm like, you failed 8 times this month. It's usually at 6 in the morning when you're trying to go to work, because I've now looked at the log file, which means you need to stop drinking earlier the night before. And I can't, I can't send this log file to a judge and expect them, so sometimes I'll be like, hey, why don't you wait another 30 days, see if you can do better, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you level with people and they actually, because the point of interlock devices, at least to me, is some type of rehabilitation process. Because sure, many people get DUIs. It's not hard. You get a DUI on one night out, you're not
Mhm.
really a drinker, but there are people that have problems, drinking problems. And so you want them to at least take a look at this, what's happening and how many, because they're not knowing what they're failing at. And it's not telling them you're at an oh 08 or you're at an, it's just saying
Oh,
it,
it doesn't. They don't know it
it
at that
doesn't say
moment.
it on the screen. So I like to tell them the details, like, look, dude, you blew a 0.17 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on this date. Like, so it's important for them to know their limits so that they can learn, like, let me change this behavior. And then that's it. And then the whole point of it was, it served its purpose.
I think that's really like kind of beautiful what you said too, because like I know, in this line of work, a lot of times, there's a lot of shame from people. There's a lot of we're dealing with people at some of the most difficult times in their lives.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of attorneys do it differently too, in terms of what they require to work with someone or therapy or treatment. And I kind of take a similar approach. I feel like, I always, my like tagline always is, we don't judge you, we don't lecture you, we defend you. And
Right.
it sounds like, you're not necessarily passing judgment, but you are getting them to look at the
Yeah.
behavior, maybe make some decisions for themselves about changing that behavior.
Right.
And I think that's, probably has a lot more, I bet more than you even know, in terms of like, butterfly wings and all that. It probably has really like affected people more than in terms of getting treatment and stuff, or getting themselves on the right path, because it isn't you're not coming at someone with judgment. You're coming at them with like, hey dude, I'm just like telling you, maybe finish drinking a little earlier on this day, or and that is it's like an in of having that conversation with someone without going, hey, you need, you got a problem, you need treatment, which is never gonna, doesn't work. I mean, even when courts mandate it, it doesn't work in that kind of way. So I actually think you probably do a lot of good, more good than with those conversations. I am guessing, I mean, I think people really, they need to hear that, and they need to hear it that way. Of course, the other side to it too is it absolutely is a way for people to modify their behavior, to see how it's actually affecting them while driving, whatever, and make better decisions. It also does a secondary thing, which is it allows prosecutors and judges to be way more lenient with sentencing, whether
Mhm.
that's in terms of letting someone drive, or even resolving cases potentially without DWIs, to recklesses where they're deserved and the facts line up and everything is right, because it protects the public. No prosecutor or judge wants to be that guy that let you drive and then you go down and mow down 4 nuns or something, God forbid, and you end up on the front page of we all end up on the front page of the paper. So the interlock also makes sure that if we're going to let this person drive, from a judge and prosecutor standpoint, we're assured that the public's going to be safe, because I think they thought, people are driving anyway, suspended or
Yeah.
other,
Yep. I
so I
agree.
think that's another piece of it as
That's
well.
why they did that whole, put the interlock device in during suspension, and nobody understood why. And I said, well, back when Ricky's law passed, Mothers Against Drunk Driving came forward and they're like, we have these stats that say this many drivers are still driving while they're suspended. So we want them to have the units in the car while they're suspended. And they, and that's what they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And it's silly because you're like, here, you have to have this thing in your car, but you're not allowed to drive for 7 months and you have to bring it in every month. But,
How do you do that? Right. Exactly. It
both
makes
sides
no
of it.
sense, but also, I mean, you understand the logic, but it also kind of,
Right.
it really only protects, it's really only protective for people that aren't going to follow the law. Because
Right.
if you're really going to be good and not drive, it was a punitive thing for no reason. And it really
Right.
was just for those, handful of people that were going to drive anyway, which is sort of
Right.
unfair, but So what's the process like for someone that needs to get this? Can you talk a bit about the process, at least with ID&J, about getting it?
Sure. So, there's several courses of action. If you're coming in before court, which is new this
Right.
year, that they're allowing people to put them in before court, we want to make sure that you call in enough time to get yourself scheduled the week before court, because the benefit of putting it in before court is twofold. One being that if you put it in before court and take the paperwork that we give you, which is consisting of a voluntary installation certificate and a contract, to the regional motor vehicle, and get the interlock license before you go to court, then the court is supposed to do two things for you. It's supposed to eliminate the suspension at all, which if you
Even
don't
for
do
a
it,
day, even
right,
right.
it was an indefinite suspension until you get an interlock, until you go to the DMV, which would happen is you'd need a ride to us, a ride to the
Right.
DMV. Maybe you can get an appointment in a day or two. So now maybe you're suspended for a week. So this is eliminating the suspension. And it's written in the law that they're supposed to drop the fines to nothing, which I think are about $250 to $300.
Yeah, true. And we're seeing that, I think that'll get better over time. We're still seeing judges that don't totally understand that, and we're having to advocate. And I think as everyone gets more used to it, I think we'll see that more across the board. I always give kind of both options to clients so that they can, think about getting it before versus getting it. Sometimes they get it before, but then go to DMV after. I mean, there's kind of pros and cons on both sides, because you also have it for 7 more days that don't count.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
other side of the coin. But
Court doesn't get postponed, if court doesn't get postponed. So I agree that on these first offenders that need it for 90 days, they're probably better off waiting until after court, because you're talking about an extra week or whatever. You're also talking about 2 trips to the DMV, because
correct. That's what I always say too. Yeah.
talking about before court, then after court. And then at the end, when we give you the certificate of compliance, you're going back a third time. So it depends on how much of a nightmare your DMV is. And,
Which they might figure, they might streamline that over time too. I feel like sometimes, the legislature changes laws and then doesn't give the DMV a whole lot of direction or on how to implement. So that might get better. But for now, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I don't know if I want to go to the DMV that many times in a short period of time. And then you look at it and go, well, $300, that might cover the Uber back and forth too, so it might actually end up being sort of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But
the idea of it was to
you definitely want to
supplement.
plan at a minimum. You want to plan for the interlock to be installed before you go to court. Plan for it if you're not get it. And then are they going? So I know you said with some of the bigger companies, they're going to these like radio installer type stereotype people. Where do they go with ID&J? Who does the installations?
So we have 12 locations in New Jersey with our own technicians. And when I said I had 7 staff under me, that's just the office staff. There's then also 10 installers at these different locations. So you just call and we find the one that's closest to you. They're as far north as North Bergen, up in Hudson County, Saddlebrook. We have North Brunswick, Kenilworth, Hamilton, which is the Trenton area, and then a bunch in South Jersey, Vineland, Cherry Hill, Pleasantville, and Berlin. So we have a bunch of locations.
Are you guys able to help anybody outside of the state, or it's all Jersey at this point?
So it depends. We used to help a lot in New York. We used to have a lot of Dorota's clients. Dorota is the
Dorota. I know her well, for sure.
I had a great relationship with Dorota, but it's such a pain with the cameras, because and all the other states have gone to this 7,000 unit that has the GPS monitoring. And because New Jersey doesn't require it, we don't have them, nor do we want them, because we don't need all of that stuff here. So we can help other states. Just depends on what state and do they want reporting. And we were next to Pennsylvania, but we don't communicate with Pennsylvania. So we send our Pennsylvania clients over to an affiliate over there of Draeger, and they help them because they communicate with, Pennsylvania.
Right. Better. Okay. That's good to know. What about removal? What's the process like when you get it off?
So the removal process is that at your second visit after getting it installed, we're going to ask you for a copy of the pink slip that you got at the DMV or your driver's license, which will either tell us your removal date on it, or it'll give us enough information that we request the removal date from the DMV. So the DMV then emails us the removal date, say the removal date is September 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So on September 29th, or the soonest appointment you can get at whatever shop you want thereafter, we do what's called a final download, because we have to look at that log file for the last 30 days, make sure there's no more than one alcohol violation, and we have to issue the certificate of compliance. So we say we give ourselves 24 to 48 business hours to get that cert over to the client, and we have their removal scheduled usually a week from that final download. So then they'll come in for the final download. Nikki in my office does the looking at the log files and sending the certs usually the following morning, unless it's a weekend. They'll email that to the client. The client will print that out. Very important. The DMV wants it printed out and walk it into a regional motor vehicle. The motor vehicle will clear their license, and they'll give them another pink slip and a temporary license that no longer has the interlock requirement on there. And then they'll come back to us for removal.
And can I just say that is huge, because there are many lawyers throughout the state of New Jersey that do not know how that works.
Yes,
So
I know.
I hope that everybody watches that clip and goes, okay, I'm gonna now
Yeah.
I know I might have it transcribed and turned into a booklet or something.
And I think what some of those other companies are doing are they're pushing that out a whole month to get, and they're not quick with this removal process, at all. So that's where they're nickel and diming. And when you say, how do you save money? You save money by going to a company who's actually efficient in this process, because we're like, and we push them a week, not really for us, but for them, because they have to get a printer to print this document out. They have to go to the DMV, and so often when we were scheduling them like 2 days out, they didn't have time to go to the DMV with their work schedule. So we push it a week. So this way we know we've done our part. You guys have done your part. It's just fair amount of time, and let's get it done.
That's the thing. Everybody in this process has a piece to do. The provider and installer, like you guys, have a piece to do. The attorney has a piece to do, and the client, we're not literally doing it for them. The client still has, an obligation to, to do these things, that you still have to take responsibility for this thing that's in your car and what you've agreed to do by the court, and like get the government in and out of your life as quickly as possible. Sometimes, clients will come to both of us. I know we've both had this because we've shared clients that do this, that are, we're not your mom. We care about you. We want to get you through this quickly, but there are some pieces that you're going to have to take some responsibility for in order for us to help you get this over with, make this a bump in your road rather than a life-changing thing, get the government out of your life, and get you, back to copacetic as you were before. And I think that's an important point too, because, we're awesome, but we're not your mom.
Yeah. And sometimes it baffles me, because I'm like, when they put it in voluntarily, it's very important that they know they need to go back to the DMV, because that I've seen throw a wrench in everything, because the DMV doesn't know when to start calculating the time until you go back. And so then they call me 3 months later and they're like, well, they never started my time. And now they're saying
all the
it's 90
time,
days
all the
from here.
time. And I give people, LeeAnn, you know me, I give people, I have the handouts that you guys have provided to attorneys to be able to give to their clients. I have all the information that's given to people in advance, and it's done on a, it's a part of our procedure and process. So they know it. Whether they, internalize it is another question.
I send a text message I have a spreadsheet for everybody who put it in voluntarily, so that each morning I go in and I text message every voluntary install at 7:49, 7:50 in the morning, and say, you just installed an interlock device. Your next steps are
that's amazing.
X, Y, as soon as you're done court, email me the order and certification so that I can send you back the document, and you'll have to go back to the DMV. And they still will be like, nobody told me. So I'm like, sir, at 7:49 on May 2nd, I sent you a text message and said.
But the fact that you do that is so above and beyond. And and I think like that's the thing, that's the takeaway, is like it's a joint effort. It's a team that you're assembling. There's a team on the front end, as far as when you're fighting the case, when you're trying to get the best outcome. You've got your lawyer, you've maybe got an expert, you've got collateral people sometimes you might that you're working with in terms of an immigration issue or a CDL, whatever it might be, professional license. But then on the back end, you have a team also. And that team could be your lawyer like me. It could be someone like LeeAnn who's going way above and beyond. but there's still there's still stuff for you to do to take some
Right.
personal responsibility to get this. And really, if you, as much as people want to bury their head in the sand, if they lock in and do it, we're going to help them between all of us get through it with minimal impact, in and out of your life, easy peasy,
Right.
you know. And I think that's just, make, just don't put your head in the sand, make it easy on yourself and us. And I think
Right.
that's better. All
Yeah.
right, just two more questions. One is, what do you think people should look for in an interlock company? And we've kind of said it throughout. I certainly have my opinions, but I think small, I think caring. I think if your case is in New Jersey and you drive in New Jersey, I think it's a huge value to have a New Jersey company, because all the paperwork is a huge part of the problem when people go with other companies and they get the paperwork wrong for New Jersey. So those would be the thing, small company, people that go the extra mile like you, New Jersey centric. If your case is in New Jersey, helps. What do you think?
So I always tell people when they call, because listen, I understand shopping around and wanting the best deal. I tell them you want to ask hidden fees
Mm,
on the phone because they're not going to tell you. They're not
mhm,
going to tell you. They're not transparent when you call.
mhm.
You want to ask them about hidden fees. You want to ask them how much is the subcontractor going to charge me for installation, because they should know that information, because we have that business model in our Connecticut business, which I hate,
Mhm.
but it's there. So I understand it.
Right.
And they want to ask how difficult is the unit to use, because there's some units on the market that you don't just blow into, you have to blow and hum and blow. And so many people have said that they have a lot of difficulty. And what happens is every time that you don't take that hum test properly, because their business model is that they kind of want you to come in to charge you to reset it, like every time there's a problem you're coming in. So that's the questions I would tell someone to ask. But of course, all the things we said, and you know a little biased because I think that we're the best, because I have built for the last 14 years trying to make us the best. But you know be fair to yourself and shop around, but those are the questions that you should be asking.
Yeah. And how do people, like, if they need one of these devices, either voluntarily through a matrimonial or custody case, through DUI, obviously a lot of people come because their attorney, like me, sends them and
Mhm.
recommends it and says, and I should say also, so I've said it, as attorneys, we have no skin in the game. I don't make any money from LeeAnn. I get no kickbacks. I have no skin in the game. The reason I recommend a specific company to a client is really twofold. One, because I think they're easier to deal with and great, and good for the client. And two, that they've done so well with their customer service that if I need to advocate, if there is a document that's wrong, like, I know I can email you and say, like, I have
Yeah.
a client I can't figure out what's going on with it or whatever, or a client who failed and we got to go back to court and I can't figure out why or whatever. I know that I can call. And for me, that's a huge benefit, not just for me, but for my clients. Some of the other
Yes.
companies, I won't name names, but I don't have that ability. I don't have a person who I can call if my client has trouble. And so, not to say that, listen, something could be the client's fault. I'm not saying that, but just being able to find out what's going on, get the information and advocate for either a form, an issue, whatever, is why I send them. It is because I think that's a value to them and to me. I don't want to be on the phone for 5 hours trying to figure out who to call at one of the other things. So,
Yeah.
for me, it's a value. That is why I recommend them. As attorneys, we have no skin in the game. We're getting, no money, nothing like that. It's just solely because I don't care who you use, but just know if you use one of those other companies that shall remain nameless, I can't advocate in the same way I can if you use, IDNJ. I do sometimes go with some of the other ones, especially if I have somebody out of state and I have to do something
Yeah.
out of state, I
Right.
recommend it. But the point is like some company where they have some communication with your attorney and your attorneys work with them before, I think that makes a big difference.
Mhm.
But how do people, obviously people find out through their attorney who to use. Is there a special number people call? Do they go on our website? And I'm going to link it in the notes, but.
So we do a little bit of advertising. We have Google, Google AdWords. So if you
Mhm,
Google Interlock Device in New Jersey, they're going to find us that way.
mhm,
We send a mailer out, that everybody who gets a DUI is on a list, unfortunately, or fortunately for them. So we send a mailer out. It used to be that we send it out once when they get the ticket, and then once 6 months or 9 months later because of the suspension, but that's kind of out now. So it's going out a couple times in the period of like a month, I think now. So you should see us in the mail, but you want to be careful because they're all sending them,
Right, right. And so to be clear, IDNJ.
Yeah,
Interlock
Interlock
New
Device
Jersey.
of New Jersey is the name of the company. IDNJ is the logo everywhere now. So yeah, that's
It's there
us.
on your shirt if people can.
Yeah, it's on my shirt.
And I'll link it here too, because if you're in the, I don't know, I was gonna say unfortunate position, but I won't say that because it's a fortunate position that you can drive now. So if you're in a fortunate position, despite everything that's on your to drive and you just to get an interlock, IDN is a great company that will help you get through it with minimal.
We want to make it as smooth, easy, and pleasant experience as possible. We know that you've already been raked over the coals by the police, by the court system, maybe an attorney. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. And the DMV. So we wanted, this is the home stretch. This is it. We're going to get it squared away. It's going to be easy. We're going to help you and you're going to stay on the road, and that's it. And it's, again, non-judgmental. We're just here to help you. That's it.
And I think you guys do a great job at all of it. So thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate your time. I think people need this information, and hopefully it's going to make both of our jobs easier too, because we're going to give that information to people. They'll know what they need to do and they'll get it done. So thank you so much. I know how super busy you are with fielding annoying emails from lawyers, and
that's okay.
So I'm going to let you get back to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.